What we wanted to do was create an opportunity where we have an environment where you can hear voices of people who have experience in Korea through various different ways, and then you can hear kind of what life is like. We don't want to hide behind forums, but we're right here with mics and cameras. On that note, March is a new semester, so there's a lot of teachers arriving, and it's opportunity for us to reach a bunch of you at once. And we wanted to focus on some helpful information for you especially in your first couple of weeks, in your first month in Korea, because oftentimes that is what defines your experience. Without further ado, let's jump right in. I'll introduce the members of the panel as we go. So we're going to start off with Joe. Thanks for being here with us.
Thank you.
The guests have they've seen your bio on the site, but tell us a little bit more about ZenKimchi.
Well, ZenKimchi, we started, actually, we hit our 10-year anniversary this week. So, yeah, we were one of Korea's first web food blogs, and what I've been doing for the past 10 years is really just talking about Korean food, mostly from an expat perspective on how to survive in the Korean food scene. I started the blog mostly, well, partly to record things for myself and to share with my friends and family, but also to help other people trying to adjust to Korea. Because even though we love to eat in Korea, there are little nuances that are a little intimidating, and I wanted to make it a little less intimidating for people.
Right on. It's when I first arrived in Korea, it's daunting. You have no idea what to eat, and a lot of the especially teachers end up eating their first number of meals at convenience stores because 7-Eleven is a recognizable name. So how could you encourage them to get through their first few meals in a new country?
Well, see, one of the things is that Koreans view dining as a communal activity. You tend to go out in groups, but I would say that one of the first things to do is get a buddy. If you cannot get a buddy, there are a lot of cool little diners called kimbap Cheongguk, and this is how I first started learning in Korea. Is that now these days a lot of kimbap Cheongguk actually have picture menus to help you out, but even if not, I still strongly suggest learning how to read Korean, which is very easy to learn to read. I learned it in 2 hours. Most people learn it in a week. And those places that you don't have to be with someone there, they're really cool, and they have a good variety of dishes, and it's cheap. And the other good thing is that most Korean restaurants really only have 5 items on their menus anyway. So you just point to the top thing on the menu. My usual trick is the top or the top left thing on the menu. It's usually the specialty of the house. And have fun with it. There's no real rules on how to eat. I mean, nothing that will make someone really get angry. You know, like in Japan, there are all these tiny little rules you have to follow. And in Korea, like Lonely Planet says, you know, not supposed to put your chopsticks in your rice, or you're not supposed to eat your rice with chopsticks or hold your bowl or anything like that. And you know what? I've seen every Korean break those rules. There's no real rules for eating here. So getting over the intimidation factor is you got to close your eyes and just go in the restaurant and point at the menu, and you will likely, I would say, you'll actually be surprised. It actually works. You won't starve. I'll tell you that.
That's helpful, Joe. It's true. Those small little Korean fast food restaurants, they get you by. Let me tell you. For those who maybe prefer to cook at home, what are Korean grocery stores like? You have any tips for these newcomers?
I will tell you, it has totally changed from 10 years ago. that Western ingredients are way more available than they used to be. So if you don't know how to cook Korean dishes, which once you learn some basic Korean dishes, they're easy to cook. But other than that, you can really find most ingredients that you miss from home. You're going to pay a little more because they're imported. It's really funny when you see something you used to eat every day is now some type of exotic import. But also, we have on our website, one of the other things I do on my website was showing you how to make foods you're familiar with Korean ingredients. It's funny enough that's how I first came up with doing kimchi quesadillas my first year. Everyone thought I was disgusting making kimchi quesadillas, and now it's like the big hit in America. But the other tip I would give is avoid grocery stores after 12 o'clock on Sundays.
Amen.
It's just nasty. It's nasty. What's funny is if you go before 12 o'clock, it's a desert in there. But if you're going to do your major grocery shopping, I recommend Tuesdays because that's usually when they restock everything and the place is empty. Most of you are going to live near a smaller mom and pop grocery store. I call them ajashi marts, and they're going to supply you with most everything you'll need. It's really not hard. And if anything, I lived off of ramen my first few months because being the poor fresh newbie from the plane, that was basically all I could afford back then. But at the same time, aside from the grocery stores, excuse me, you can order most every type of food in Korea to have it delivered to your door. That's really cool. And it's really, if you can learn some basics on how to order food in Korean, which all you do is, you don't even wait for them to ask you anything. First thing you do is you say your address, and then you say what dishes you want, and boom, they come to your door. And after they've done it the first time, they'll note that you're the foreigner in the neighborhood, and they record your number. And you can get a full Korean meal for $5.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
Right on. No, that's really helpful, Joe. Just before we pass it on to Scott, what is the one? I mean, if you were to look at a newcomer coming to Korea, we need to eat. One of my favorite things about Korea is eating. What is the one nugget you'd pass on to these new teachers heading over there?
Get out of your comfort zone. I've seen too many people come all the way across the world and eat at Outback every meal. And why would you go halfway around the world to eat at Outback?
Yeah. Perfect.
Outback sucks here.
Yes, it does. Awesome. Joe, thank you. That was great.
Sure.
Our next guest is Scot Sustad from the Arrival Store. We invited him to talk about some of the more confusing and frustrating things about your arrival, and that is cell phones. So, Scot, just take it away. Maybe introduce yourself. Just give a couple of minutes of who you are.
Hi, everyone. Just wanted to say how cool this is to get the chance to be interacting with other experts and other people and newcomers going over to be part of this Expats Helping Expats thing. So I'm just excited about it. I think it's fun when we're working collaboratively versus in separate environments. So excited and definitely envious of all of you guys who are headed over for the first time. I set out for Asia with my wife. Thought I was going to be there for 6 months and ended up being in Taiwan for 6 months and then Korea for 2 years. And now I get to go back all the time, and I just love that. So you never know what's going to come as a result of your Korean adventure. And it's really my experiences that led us to start the Arrival Store. I think we had set up life in one too many spots and just got to the point where it was dealing with the transitions and all the details and the logistics and of getting life set up. Just got to the point where there seemed like there should be an easier way, and it was through that experience that the idea of the Arrival Store started to pop up. And even even as things over the years, I mean, you'll learn this, that Korea changes extremely quickly, just like most countries do, and things that might not have been available, you know, a few years ago are now like easily accessible. And that's definitely been the case with some of the things that we ran into when we first went over. Super hard, very difficult to get set up or to find or to track down. And just like Joe was saying, you know, at the grocery stores, what used to be a luxury, now you can find it pretty easily. But still, I find that no matter what, I just moved from the U.S. to Canada, and moving, and even moving, and definitely moving to another country, no matter what, no matter how often you've done it, no matter how much you've traveled, there's always this period where you're green, you're new, right? And things that should be simple just become really difficult. And it's funny how quickly we forget about that. But the best example recently is when we moved up here, we just needed a 7-Eleven. And you know, from Seattle, would have known where it was, could have walked there. And we spent 30 minutes driving around looking for it. Our phones didn't work, and I definitely wasn't going to pay $5 in data to look it up in maps. And you know, after a half hour, we were just like, whatever, let's just go home. But funny thing is that just, you know, you find out maybe a week later that the 7-Eleven is just 2 blocks away, and you just weren't finding it. And I think that's what you find anytime you're into a new environment. And so really what the Arrival Store is all about is just taking those real life essentials and having them there ready for you when you arrive. And we're pretty happy about what we do. We think it works pretty well, and the best part is it's also really cost effective comparatively. So it's something that's been a really fun project for us.
Scott, you know, everyone always hears about Korea having amazing internet, and I mean, do you actually, as an expat, do you actually need a cell phone when you first get there?
Let me share my screen here. I cheated. I knew the question, so I put together a little deck. I think that I have some of the most detailed questions, so I thought it might be good to see a few things. Let me show my screen here. So do expats actually need a phone? Really simple answer to that question. Unless you're quite unusual in terms of your use of technology and connection, you're going to want a phone in Korea. It's just part of your life. 2, everyone doesn't make their plans on Facebook or email. Typically, plans are made last minute, and they're made via text message. And then the third thing I'd say is a cell phone it's just a tool. I mean, and it becomes a super valuable tool in terms of translation, or if you get lost, being able to find somebody. Subway, maps, apps. I mean, smartphones have just made things a whole lot easier. So I'd say yes, you'll definitely want a phone, unless you're trying to do some sort of fast from technology, which if you're that type of person, definitely encourage you to do it. That's for sure. And then the last piece on that, I have a big theory that says, you know, you want to start out with the right phone versus trying to get a bunch of different solutions and working from one thing to the next. You'll burn a lot of time doing that, and you'll probably experience a whole lot of headache. And so I say jump right in and get a phone that's going to work for you the whole time you're there, instead of just kind of a temporary sort of deal.
What makes getting cell phones so frustrating when you're setting them up in Korea as an expat?
It's really simple. The language difference just makes it adds this extra layer of complexity, and it makes it harder to understand the plans. It makes it harder to communicate with what you're actually going to get. Pretty self-explanatory. The second piece is everybody's probably heard of your alien resident card. Anytime you move to a new country, you need ID that belongs with that country, and it takes you anywhere from like 4 to 6 weeks to get that alien resident card, is what they call it in Korea. And so that period where you're waiting for that ID is actually quite frustrating, because you need it to do a whole lot of things. Say get internet set up in your apartment. If you're going to go onto a cell phone contract, you definitely need that ARC. And the third thing there is just cell phones are confusing. I think they take a lot of explanation as well, just to understand, no matter where you are.
I mean, all this talk about cell phones, is it something that most foreigners end up setting up when they first get there?
Yeah, I'd say absolutely. The vast majority of people get a cell phone, but it's hard to get it when you first get there, and there's a lot of different options. It's one of those things that has gotten easier over the past bit, but yeah, you definitely will end up getting a phone set up.
Can you just give us, I know there's probably a lot of details, but just give us a quick overview of maybe the main options for, especially for these teachers as they head over.
Okay, this is going to get really detailed, and I'll try to keep it at kind of a high level sort of deal. So basically, one of the first things is if you have a phone, right, that you want to bring over with you, a SIM card is maybe a great option for you. And these are something that really didn't exist until just recently. The end of last year, actually, they became kind of available. So a couple things that you need to know about that is your phone in good enough shape that you'll want to use it for a year? Second thing is, will it work? So in order to work in Korea, you definitely need a SIM card slot. The phone needs to be internationally unlocked, so it can't be tied to, say, like a Verizon or a Vodafone or a different service provider. And then the third thing is, nobody, unless you're a tech whiz, knows exactly what this means, but I'd suggest calling your cell phone provider and making sure that your phone is WCDMA 2100 megahertz compatible. That's a really important thing, just to make sure your phone will work there. And you know, if you aren't going to bring a phone, you could actually buy a phone outright in Korea for something like $600 to $1,000 if you bought one new, say an iPhone, and then you could pop a SIM card in it and it would work, would be your last option. Next, you get into, I just gave a quick deal here about how we've selected the SIM cards that we provide. Couple of things that I'll point out here is that, you know, the major Korean providers, typically you're going to have to wait anywhere from like 2 to 4 days for your phone to be activated. Also, the rates are going to be slightly higher. So with everything that we do at the Arrival Store, we try to find really good options that work well for foreigners. And so we actually have a SIM card that will be set up waiting for you when you arrive. Like anything, you can have it waiting at the airport when you get there. And also, if you just compare it, I did a quick rate comparison down there at the bottom, and our rates actually end up being better, a whole lot better, especially if you're going to call internationally. This would be a temporary solution, so you get a phone number for 30 days, and then you'd want to upgrade it to a contract phone. But SIM cards, if you're going to bring a phone, they're a great option and probably the least expensive option that way as well. So we've got that all listed on the website as well. Then you move into rental phones, or a prepaid plan. If you are after the cheapest option, I call it cheap and dirty simply because you never know quite what you're going to get with these phones, and they're also quite difficult to find. So I'm picturing like a 2-year-old sort of flip phone or maybe a 2-year-old smartphone. These are hard to find if you're outside the major cities. They're also secondhand, pretty unreliable, and it's why a lot of people don't do prepaid phones at home. The service is just a little bit harder to deal with, and you have to top it up, and minutes are far more expensive as well. But if you're looking for a cheap option that you aren't going to use very often, this is a great way to go. Then you get into taking over somebody else's contract, which you might have seen, say on like Craigslist, or there's a site called Phone Go Round, that basically you could take over another person's contract that's trying to leave. This is a good option if you can get it to work out. Definitely, you can get onto a phone. It would make a little bit shorter contract for you. But it is, I call it the fingers crossed method, simply because you need a lot to work out. One, that phone of the person that you find on Craigslist, they need to be in a similar area because you actually have to meet them in order to get that phone transferred over to your name. Secondly, getting that timing to work out is tough because typically somebody wants to get rid of their phone when they're leaving, and then you'd want to be taking it over, and sometimes the timing just doesn't work out. And secondly, you just don't know what kind of problems you might be inheriting there. You don't know the person or if there's any bills or anything outstanding on that phone, etc. So it is a possibility. It's something that people are doing more often these days if you can get it to work out. And my goal here is just to make sure you have a whole kind of options landscape. Then next you get into the rental phones. This is less and less an option for people that are going to be in Korea for a long time. It's just a far more expensive sort of way. But if you're looking to get connected just during those first few days that you're in Korea and you want to have something set up, you can do a rental phone at the airport. These phones are just exceptionally expensive. Again, just comparatively, we do rental phones as well. You can grab it at the airport as well. And it's just, they're literally priced to be half the price of what you get at the airport. Great for travelers, not the best if you're going to be using it for 15 days or more. So that's where we move into the next options. Then what we've done, and this came as a result of the issues that we kind of ran into as foreigners, where you simply used to not be able to even get a cell phone unless you had your ARC card. It was impossible. Now that is possible, but it still requires a number of those difficulties. At the arrival store, we've created a lease where basically it's a contract that's that you'll have no issue finishing up. So it's 6 months, and then you could use it for 10 years if you wanted to. There's no renewal or exchange fees. Set up waiting for you when you arrive. Everything's done in English, from the billing to any customer service. It's going to be a little bit more expensive than one of those cheap prepaid phones, but it is a simple and great way just to be connected as soon as you arrive. And then secondly, we do smartphone leases. So this is anything from like a 3G phone up through a brand new iPhone that you can get, and that's the price difference there. Again, it's a 6-month contract, and they're leases simply because you give the phone back before you leave, right? So it's a great solution while you're in Korea. It's set up waiting for you when you get there, and then you basically just give it back before you go. And again, it's going to be, if you kind of factor in all the details, it's going to come out, if you're going to stay in Korea for a year, it's going to be a great option for you economically as well. On both of these phones, we have deposits, simply because it's an $800 device or a $200 device that you have, and then you can rack up a bill on as well. And we just want to make sure that we both have something invested in it as well. All the details are there on the arrival store on these phones. And then finally, you get into, I'd recommend an OLE contract. We do these at the arrival store as well. This is what you want to do. If you need a new phone in Korea, you're going to be there for probably 2 years. We do this all in English, but you're directly with a KT OLE, or you can do these with a cell phone shop in your neighborhood as well. One of the benefits that I'll tell you about the arrival store is that we've actually negotiated much better rates on the phone devices themselves. What phone shops will do is the monthly billing is always the same, but where they can make a little bit more money, and what we are pretty naive to as foreigners, is that they can actually mark up the cost of the phone itself. So it can get to be quite expensive, and you don't know that you're being charged than, say, what a Korean person would be. So we've negotiated that and know that you're going to get a good deal on any 2-year phone that you sign up with. Nothing additionally charged. It's just basically we're like a cell phone shop that you'd find in your neighborhood, and we do it in English. So it gets shipped out to you, so you never have to go in, and you can have it at a very convenient place when you arrive. So that's a ton of details, I know. Our whole goal is to really, we try to be as transparent as possible with all of our customers. You never know what you're going to get when you go to a foreign country. And so everything with the arrival store is totally risk-free. If you don't like it, you can always send it back. If you get there and find you don't need it, you can send it back and we'll refund you. And then, of course, like everything, we have an order now, pay later option that gives you the ability to pay 60 days after you arrive. And so, anyway, that's a bit of a pitch for what we do. Like I said, we just believe in it. But also just kind of painting the whole picture for you in terms of what's available for you in the cell phone arena today in Korea.
Well, thank you, Scott. Gives us about a month of information to chew on. That'll be great. Very helpful, though. That is, I know that's a lot of information, but I do encourage you to take a look through that. Scott, while you were talking, Kyle just asked a question about Cow Talk. I'll actually take that one quick because I use it now, Kyle, and essentially it's like iMessage or WhatsApp, similar to that. It's just what they use in Korea. So I use it to talk with all of our employees in Korea. It's a simple app to install, very simple to use. So, and highly recommend it. You'll all your Korean friends will ask you to join anyways. Well, thank you, Scott. It's a real privilege for us to have Ben Glickman. Sometimes he goes by Sir Benjamin with us today. He's paved the way for ESL English teachers, or English teachers in Korea, and he continues to be an industry innovator. He's one of the most generous people in the industry if you get the chance to meet him. And given Ben's vast experience working with employers, we've asked him to share a little bit about Korean work culture, give you some tips about how to make a great impression on them. And this is, listen up, this is important stuff.
All right. Well, I don't know if I can follow up with that introduction, but sure. Well, let's start with footprint recruiting. So my background, I've taught in South Korea for 4 years. This is back in the Stone Age in the late 90s. I co-founded Footprint Recruiting in 2001, and since then we've placed thousands of teachers in South Korea. We work both with public and private schools over there. We've worked for a long time with the Korean government through a program called the EPIC program. We work with probably half of the provincial and metropolitan offices of education, as well as some of the larger and smaller private language schools. So that's been a large part of what we do. In the past couple of years, we've also branched out to other parts of the world, so we also place, these days, a lot of teachers in the Middle East, particularly in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates, mainland China, Malaysia, Japan, a variety of other countries. So that's one aspect of what I do. The other aspect is ESL 101. This is a startup that we started about a year and a half ago. Basically, it's a job board. So Footprint Recruiting is a full-service recruiting company where we work with you to place you with a selected employer. ESL 101 is more of a self-service option where both, it's kind of like a mini LinkedIn, I guess you could say, for teachers and schools to meet up. So as a school or a teacher, you can go on there and create your own profile. You can add your picture, your resume, information about yourself. And then you can go to the job board and you can apply directly for a job. You can send your profile directly to a school, whether it be in Vietnam or Laos or Korea or Saudi or anywhere in the world, France, Oman. We get jobs all over the place. But it's up to you to match yourself with the employer. And then we also have blogs. We have teachers writing on there from all over the world. And we also have systems where you can get jobs delivered directly to you. So if you sign up and, for example, you put in your profile that you're interested in teaching in Korea and Papua New Guinea, every time a job in those countries comes up, you'll receive an email, and you have the option of simply logging in and applying for that job for free. So two companies in the same industry, but sort of approaching it from a different way. Footprints is more hands-on with fewer employers, whereas ESL 101 is more hands-off, but with a broader spectrum of employment opportunities for you.
Great summary. Maybe with your experience in Korea, take us through some of the most apparent differences between a Western workplace and a Korean workplace.
Sure, that's a great place to start the discussion. I think one of the things that we struggle with as Westerners is adapting to a top-down management style. I think a lot of us come from environments where we're encouraged to voice our opinions. If we see something that perhaps could be done more effectively, we're trained from a young age to join in and to suggest. And it could be coming from a good place that you're actually trying to make a system work more efficiently. However, in Asia, particularly in Korea, generally direction comes from the top down. So particularly in a public setting, a director of a school, the owner of a school may not appreciate suggestions, at least not initially. And if you are going to make suggestions, it's sometimes better to do it in private than in public, because there is this whole concept of face and losing face. So if a director's like, I want this desk over there, it's best just to move that desk over there, even if you may think it may not be the best location. And then maybe later, when you have some alone time with that person, you could be like, hey, this is why I think maybe it could be over here. But in general, when you first get there, I think the best thing you can do is listen and basically just follow directions. Even if you don't see an apparent reason for doing something in a certain way, they may have a reason that you do not yet understand as to why to do it. So a great way to adapt to a Korean workplace is to follow the lead of those around you and follow the structure of command that's already in place.
Good, very helpful. Two things I want to ask, Ben. One, I want to ask what are some of the common mistakes, and then also how to get some early wins and how to really make a good impression. So maybe to give us 3 examples or 2 of each.
Okay. Well, let's start with the ways that you can go over there and get off on the right foot. I think there's a couple things you can do that are quite simple. One thing is Korean work environments tend to be more formal than Western work environments, and Koreans do place a premium on your presentation. Now, you don't have to be the most handsome or beautiful person in the world. I mean, I taught there for 4 years. I'm not a model. But the best, if you want to impress them, dress nicely. You don't have to have expensive designer clothes, but make sure your clothes are clean, they're pressed, you have a decent haircut, that you look nice. That in and of itself will create a good impression. And I know it can be difficult when you first get off a plane, you know, your clothes are wrinkled and you know, you're tired, whatnot, but you know, it's not that much effort if you're a guy to shave. You know, dry cleaning is cheap. You can get it done virtually on the spot, like overnight. It's not difficult there. So put some effort into how you look physically. And like I said, it's not about your physical body so much as putting the effort into looking professional. It's always better to go in and be overdressed, and then later you can scale back. But you're never going to go wrong by starting off with a suit and a tie or business presentation, and then as time goes by, gear back from that. Because when you make that first impression, if you go in there in the first couple of weeks, you look good. That's how they're going to remember. Even for the remaining 50 weeks, you're in casual clothes. They're going to be like, oh yeah, that's the teacher shirt. They're professional. So 1 point. Second one, show up early. You know, you're under contract to teach typically, depending on the job, 15 to 30 hours a week. You are expected to put in prep time. So at least in the first week or two, give the effort to show up an hour or two early to prepare for your classes and at least give the semblance of working on what they're paying you to do. You know, again, later, you know, maybe you could take some liberties with that, but you know, it's a vocation, not a vacation, and treat it like a job. It is a job. And you know, the job isn't strictly just showing up and being present in the classroom. It's everything that goes into that, including preparing for it, correcting homework, etc. Third thing I would say to start off on the right foot is go above and beyond. You know, again, you're there under a contract, but Korea is not really a contract-based society. It's more based on relationships. So, you know, be attuned to what needs to get done around the school. And generally, you know, Koreans are an extremely hard-working culture, and the expectation there is that if something needs to get done, that you're going to put in the extra work to do it, and that you're not expected necessarily to get paid overtime for every hour that you work. But oftentimes, if you help out your school or employer, that will be repaid to you times 10. You know, if you help them sign up new students, you teach that extra demonstration class, you do whatever, they may, you know, invite you home for Thanksgiving dinner, take you on a trip, that type of thing. And at the end of the day, that's what you're going to remember, the fact that you had Thanksgiving dinner with a Korean family, not that you only worked 30 hours a week. Those are some things you can do right off the bat.
You may have touched on this already a little bit, but what are just very briefly the don't do's? When you first get there, don't, and you could just do the opposite of what you just said,
yeah,
but are there some other ones?
Yeah, I mean, I would say probably the biggest things would be, I mean, obviously put effort into, I mean, it sounds trite to say, but the thing is you can almost tell what kind of experience somebody's going to have before they go based on the types of questions they ask. So the most important thing is to be flexible and realize things aren't, whatever your expectations are, it's not going to be like that. It's going to be different. And as Joe said earlier, you're there to experience a different culture. You know, the candidates that come through and they're like, I want air conditioning, and I want this schedule, and I want to be here, and blah, 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 blah. It doesn't matter. They could have the best job in Korea and still come out unhappy because they didn't meet that expectation. Be flexible. You know, if you're very rigid and you expect things to happen in Korea, it can also often be like a very last-minute type of thing. You know, things change constantly. You just have to be able to embrace that and adapt to that. So the other thing, too, is like a lot of things may seem contradictory when you first get there, or you may not understand why things are done differently. I certainly didn't. But give it some time, because a lot of times there's cultural reasons, it's a different country, it's a more crowded country, there's reasons why things may be done differently, and it may not be for a stupid reason, you may not just understand it yet. And I think, as Joe alluded to earlier as well, learning the language is huge. You don't have to be fluent in it, but even if just being able to speak enough or read enough to read bus signs, subway signs, menu signs, these things make your life infinitely easier. And Koreans greatly appreciate any effort at all to speak their language. Like, and again, like if you, particularly when you're out in the country, you know, any effort to try to communicate will be repaid many times over. And I think the last thing I would like to point out is another way to avoid frustration is to actually expose yourself to the culture. Now, unfortunately, there's a lot of negativity in the expat community, but a lot of these people put the least amount of effort into it. And like anything in life, the more effort you put into something, the more you're going to get out of it. So make sure that you go over to this country and you actually expose yourself to the people, the food, the culture. Transportation there is extremely cheap and efficient. Make sure to go out to the countryside, see a Buddhist temple, go to a small town, you know, try something that maybe you wouldn't have tried at home, you know, food-wise. Make local friends. There's tons of Koreans want to meet foreigners, but they're very shy in terms of how to do so. But the more you get involved with these local groups, local things, and outside of the expat community, I think the less frustrated you're going to be with your life over there. And then one final point I'll bring up is, and this kind of leads, I think, into the last part in terms of having a better working experience, is think about the fact that you're probably not going to be there forever. So a lot of people focus on the culture shock, like, oh my God, what's it going to be like when I go over there, blah, blah, blah. And that's great. But think about the fact that you're going to come home at some point. Reverse culture shock, I think, as a lot of us can attest to, is actually more difficult for a lot of people than going over there, because you don't realize that you've changed. So a couple of basic things you can do, and especially technology has helped us a lot, is one, save some money. You know, when you first come back, the most expensive time is often when you first come back, because you got to get an apartment, a car, all types of things. It's better to have some savings in place to be able to do that when you first get home. Keep up to date with your networking contacts with things like LinkedIn. There's a lot of like online education opportunities now. A lot of these are even accredited programs. And even just little things like making sure your driver's license. A lot of these things can be updated online now, and if you do that before you come home, you're going to save yourself a lot of hassle before you get back.
Very helpful, Ben. While you're talking, was that ask a question too, which is a hot topic on forums, and that is about gifts. Do you bring a gift for your employer? If so, who do you give it to? Do you give it to the secretary? Do you give it to the wife of the daughter of whoever? And what do you bring?
Yeah, I mean, gifts are a huge part of Korean and Asian culture. I think something which is indicative of your local environment. It doesn't have to be expensive or big, but something that they aren't going to readily see over there, whether it's a local, you know, food product or something, you know, a souvenir from, you know, your local culture. Like, you know, for example, Lizette, you said you're from Miami, something that speaks to South Florida, you know, of the culture, you know, there could be an appropriate gift in Korea. You know, when you're giving gifts, give them with two hands. I would say, you know, bring lots of smaller gifts and give them out liberally to anybody. You know, not anybody, but, you know, okay, it can't hurt to bring them to your, you know, director, the school owner, these types of things, and it helps, definitely helps pave the way. You know, bringing little things for, you know, some of your students and whatnot is again, it's a great icebreaker. So, you know, it could just be something as simple as, you know, erasers, you know, pencils, whatever. It doesn't have to be elaborate, but sure, it is. And when you're giving gifts, make sure to give it with two hands. And receive something back with two hands. It's a good way to show respect in Korea. And while you're over there, don't be surprised if you receive gifts like spam. They love spam, and they give it a lot. So it's actually, it's not ironic over there. It's kind of a big deal.
It's very true. I think we've all received spam. And I'm sure Joe probably has a recipe for spam quesadillas or something. But spam to Koreans is like premium sausages to a Canadian. So enjoy it while you can.
Actually, I started really. I never liked spam until I came to Korea. Now I sort of like it.
There you go. Good Old Testament.
And in fact, you know, if you wanted to actually bring a great gift for your...
you're muted there.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, there you go.
if you pack it shipping is a good room, and you can bring a bunch of spam from the States, they'd be thrilled to have like some English language spam. That'd be awesome.
Perfect. Well, thank you. That's a great transition to Kalie. We've saved her for last because we figured you guys would really appreciate hearing from someone living and teaching in Korea. So this is Kalie. She has kind of given us some ins and outs of Korean apartments because your home is important. Your home away from home. So Kalie, why don't you take it away? Maybe just give us some of the your first thoughts when you stepped out of that plane to your school and then to your apartment. What happened? What did you feel?
I guess my first feeling is I was very excited. I came in with no expectations, which I think was the best thing to do, because then you're not disappointed. So stepped off the plane, very tired, but I'm married, and my husband and I actually ordered a phone through the arrival store. Best thing we could have done, because right in the airport we had phones, we had internet access, we could keep in touch with each other, we could start writing friends and family back home. Hey, we made it, we're still in the airport. And then with Epic, nice class. I didn't know anything about their arrival store before coming to Korea, so I don't work for them or anything. But because with Epic, you go through an orientation. So they'll pick you up from the airport, and then they take you on a bus to your orientation, and you're there for about a week or so, and then another bus to your destination. So kind of just going with the flow of things and try not to have expectations, I guess, on how it should be or how I wanted it to be. So just be open-minded. And then your co-teacher will pick you up from, like, the buses will stop wherever your city is, and your co-teachers pick you up, and the first thing they do is they take you to your apartment, of course, because you have all your luggage and everything. And if you're traveling as a couple, at that time you'll split up, which can be a little nerve-wracking because the whole time you've been together and you've always had someone, so that would be your first time kind of on your own. But if you're traveling by yourself, then it's still kind of nerve-wracking because you make friends during your orientation, and this will be the first time that you really, being in Korea, are by yourself. But your co-teacher will be really nice and helpful. And the first thing I thought when I stepped into my apartment was, it's bigger than I expected. You hear that they're very small, and for the most part they are. Again, my experience was a little different because I had couple housing with my husband, so we did have a little of a bigger apartment because there were two of us. So it was bigger than I expected. For the most part, I would say singles will have a studio apartment, so everything will be in one room. Your kitchen, and then obviously your bathroom will be a little door. So expect it to be small. I think that would be the best way to go into it. And then if it's bigger than you thought, then yay, that's great. Also, something that's quite different is you don't wear shoes inside here. So when I first walked into my apartment, I just, bolted right in, and my co-teacher was like, no, your shoes. And I was like, oh, okay. So they take their shoes off when they walk in the door and leave them there, and there's like a little closet for your shoes, which is nice because then you're not tracking dirt or anything else around your apartment. They also do that at school, which I had not heard until Epic Orientation, and I love it because you wear slippers. So you have a little cubby when you get to into your school, normally like on the first floor, or sometimes you can take your shoes up to your classroom, and you wear slippers all day, which I love because it's comfortable. But especially for a woman, if you're wearing heels to work, you get to wear slippers all day. Okay. Does that answer?
That's really helpful. That's really helpful, Kalie. Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, a couple of things. You mentioned expectations, and I reiterate that too. Having expectations, set them low when you come to Korea. If you have low expectations, you'll be pleasantly surprised. If you have high expectations, you might be frustrated. So that's a great point, Kalie. Maybe take us through recycling trash. When you get there, it looks like you need a tutorial just to take out your trash. Just a brief summary of how you do that would be helpful.
Okay, it's very different here. You have to have special trash bags. I have friends who their apartment actually provides those trash bags, so you just have to find out like where to go to get those for free. But with my experience, we had to pay for them, and depending on where you are, it would be like maybe there's a little store. It's much easier. If you have it all in one big bag, you go down there and it's like, okay, I have a soda can that goes in this bag, and then you walk, and generally at that time the guard will come because you're the foreigner. The guard will come and make sure, stand over you, make sure you're doing it right, which is a big deal because if you're not, he'll take it out and be like, oh, it goes over here. So I guess just you'll have to familiarize yourself with that. But the easiest thing is they've got glass, the tin, the like cardboard, paper. They've got big plastics like water bottles and things like that, and then little plastics like wrappers. So you're going to be separating all of it. And also, something that you need to know is some apartments only provide recycling on certain days. So you'll have to know, like the first apartment, I've lived in 2 apartments. The first one that was provided by Epic, we only had recycling on Tuesdays and Fridays. So you had to remember that, get your recycling out on Friday or else it really piled up over the weekend. Other apartments will have it available 24/7.
Yeah, that's helpful, Kalie. For these new teachers coming over for the first time, what's some advice that you would give them on setting up their apartment? Maybe it's things they're bringing with them from home. Maybe you can speak into that a little bit.
Okay, Korea here is very big on filtered water, so you don't really drink water from the tap. And I grew up in Florida, and you don't drink water from the tap there either. So it wasn't too different for me, but I know a lot of people are able to do that. So I have a couple friends who do, but it's just not the tastiest water, I guess you could say. So they have a lot of different filter options. Normally they have these like big contraptions that has like the hot and the cold water that you can do, but those are pricey. So I would recommend a Brita filter. We brought one over because they're kind of pricey here, so we just bought one and stuffed it in our bags. So that's doable, and you can get the replacement filters here. Another plug, I do think their rival store offers filters as well. So I think they are available here. 2 years ago they were expensive. I don't know if they've dropped in price. So we just brought ours over. I know. I don't work for their rival store, but they had some really good perks. While we're on it, I'm going to go ahead and talk another thing about their rival store. We bought our bedding through them. Korea here, they love lots of colors and flowers, and so it's kind of difficult. It's kind of difficult to find nice, chic, I guess, bedding or even like towels and stuff. Sorry, now I've started reading what people are saying. So we went with just a solid like chocolate brown color, and it was great. They delivered it to our school, so it was there right away. And we like the mattresses are a little harder, so we got a mattress pad and everything. But I would definitely recommend that because it looks nicer than a lot of my friends. You go into their apartment and they have like guys have flowers like comforters, and it's just because it's all they could find, or it was cheap or whatever. So so yeah, another plug. I don't really work for them, but I guess the main thing that I would think to do when you get there is use your co-teacher. Like, they are very helpful. Some more helpful than others, I would say. Mine has been extremely helpful. So any questions that I had, like, I would just ask her. So I would say, find someone at your school that you can speak to about different issues that'll be helpful with, things like phones or just bills, because when you come here, everything will be in Korean, even like the hot water. Like the little machines to turn on the hot water or the heating, the floors heat up here. It's not like a normal, like the air heat, like you turn on your heat and it's floor heating, which is nice. It feels great. Sometimes it takes a little longer to heat up, but it's a nice thing that's different. But everything will be in Korean. So what I would do is just take a picture. Can you help me? turn everything on, as well as like the washing machine or stuff, things like that. So just use your co-teacher. Don't be afraid to ask someone, or if you know someone who knows a little more Korean than you, or if you Google Translate or something, because everything will be in Korean, which will be a bit of a shock. But also with apartments, sometimes the guard will come over the loudspeaker and say something to you, and it's probably just like an announcement. So at that time, you're kind of just like, I don't really know what's going on. And then the water will go off, and you'll be like, oh, that's what it is. So I definitely agree that learning little Korean is helpful in that sense for reading the different things around your apartment or anything like that. But, yeah. And, oh, I guess another thing would be you have the option of taking either like the EPIC provided housing or the housing stipend. And the first year I took with my husband, we took the housing that was provided, and then the second year we did the stipend. I would definitely recommend to do the housing provided for your first year, because you just don't know anything about where you're going to be. You get your school really late on, and you don't know the area. You're not familiar with things, and with the way things work here, you have to put down a large amount of money at first. They call it key money. It's a deposit, but it's generally the lowest would be equivalent to $5,000, which is just it's a lot of money up front, and generally you don't have that much at all coming in. So definitely the first year take the housing that's provided, even if it's not the best. And then go from there after you become familiar with the city that you're living in.
That's helpful, Kalie. Very helpful. A lot of teachers are going to be very appreciative with that information. One, I know we're running out of time, guys, but Kalie, for you, these are teachers going over. They probably want to hear more from you. What's one nugget? What's one thing that you felt to be the most important thing to know before you went over?
I would just, again, what I said before, just don't have any expectations. I really didn't know too much going in. I know that EPIC prepares you with the different courses and stuff that you have to take, and then you go through the orientation. So I just kind of went in not really knowing too much. I didn't over-research it, I guess, because you hear like so many different things. One person will say this, and then another person comes up and says the complete opposite. So it's all about your experience there and how you perceive things, because the schools are very different. I mean, you might have one person who loves their co-teacher, and they go out with them, they go to dinner with them, and then you have another one who just can't click with their co-teacher, so they just strictly they work with them. So everyone's going to have a different experience. So, I mean, the gifts are obviously a great thing to know, like giving even small things. They're so appreciative. The principal and vice principal and your co-teachers that help you, they're very appreciative of that. And learning a little bit of Korean, they always think it's so funny, you know, anything. Like you'll go in and they want you to say something and you just say, you know, they teach you at the orientation, hello, my name is Kalie, I'm from America, and they love it. So I guess they'll laugh at you speaking Korean. They're still doing it after 2 years. When we eat lunch, they're like, say thank you. Yeah, something simple, and they think it's so funny. But they do appreciate that.
Yeah, awesome. That's good. So the words from the wise are, don't have high expectations, and you will be pleasantly surprised. We're coming to the end of our time. Thank you for the questions in the chat window. What we're going to do is we're going to send you a recording of this as well. I was responsible for recording it, so I'm hoping it worked. So enjoy. Pass it on if you have friends or people you know going over, and come back to Expats Helping Expats. It's a new project. It's something that we feel. I mean, it's a cooperative of experienced people sharing their stuff, talking honestly, out in the open. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Kalie. Thank you, Scott, for taking part in this. This is awesome. Lizette, thank you for being the only person with the camera because we ran out of space. And thank you all, everyone else who has participated as well.